Shana Tova Nashuba. When I was a small child, I would hop out of bed at 6 a.m. and run to my parents' bedroom, and I'd stand at my mom's side of the bed and I'd poke her. "Are you up?" And she'd mumble, "Yeah, I'm up." And then I'd crawl right into bed with her and I'd poke her again. "Are you up?" She'd say, "Yeah, I'm up." And I'd say, "But your eyes are closed." And my mom would tell a little white lie. "I'm just resting them." And I'd believe her. And when I became a mom myself, our daughter Noah would do the exact same thing. At 6 a.m. no less, she'd stand on my side of the bed and she'd poke me. "Are you up?" "Yeah, I'm up." And then she'd crawl right under the covers with me and she'd poke me again. "Are you up?" "Yeah, I'm up." "But your eyes are closed." And I'd tell my mom's little white lie. "I'm just resting them." And she'd believe me. One night, early on in the pandemic lockdown, when I was feeling particularly frightened, I had a dream that felt so real that I had trouble believing it was just a dream. I dreamt I was sleeping and somebody poked me, and I was sure it was my daughter Noah. She woke me right out of my deep sleep. I look up and it's my mom of blessed memory standing right over me. "It's really you?" The next thing I knew, she crawls under my covers with me. I just stared at her. She was so real and up close. It felt so good, so cozy, so comforting to have my mom beside me, snuggling with me in my bed. I kept wondering, am I dreaming? Or is this really happening? I tried to close my eyes to see if she would disappear when I opened them again. But when I opened my eyes, there she was, looking at me with so much love in my bed with me, sharing my pillow. I asked her, "So do you see Dad?" She said, "We're inseparable." And I went on, and Aunt Blanchie and Uncle Benny and Uncle Hi and Aunt Nina and Bubby and Zadie? Yes, of course. As I looked in her eyes, I had a question, but I didn't ask it out loud. I wasn't sure if she had come to me because she knew I needed her and she was here to raise me up and comfort me, or if she had come to me because she needed me and she was here because she missed me and wanted to have some special time with me. I could see my hands. They were weighing this question like, Tevya, is she here for me or is she here for herself? And all of a sudden, the answer to my question washed over me. The answer I heard was yes. I woke up and my mother was gone. And a deep sadness washed over me. A dream like that, you don't want to wake up from. I wanted more time with her. And then I kept wondering what my dream could mean. What was my mom trying to tell me? I felt I'd been given a glimpse of knowing that what my mother needed from me was exactly what I needed from her. It wasn't in either or situation, it was a yes. Neshuva, holy love, is when the distance between you and me is no distance, even if we're far away from each other. Even if I'm here at home speaking the words of this sermon to you in your home. Even if you're alive and someone you miss is gone, a veil gets lifted and you see and you understand that what's best for you is what's best for me. And what's best for me is what's best for you. It's such a holy place. And Rosh Hashanah is here today to remind us, despite the distance we're feeling right now, it's here to offer us a glimpse of that feeling of heavenly unity, a release from the bondage of our own separateness. When the pandemic first struck our world, we all felt a touch of that. The world had come together in a joint experience of fear, pain, sorrow, and hope. The coronavirus didn't know boundaries. It didn't distinguish between a poor grandmother in Italy or a movie star. Tom Hanks, who in movies manages to survive the Apollo disaster and marooned on an island with a volleyball. Tom Hanks got it. Every country shut down at the same time. We were all in this together, fighting something bigger than ourselves. Israeli Jews and Israeli Arabs came together to look out for one another. And the cheering from the balconies across the globe, Italy, Spain, Argentina, New York, Tel Aviv, all that gratitude pouring forth for those brave souls, all the doctors and the nurses marching in to risk their lives in the front lines of this battle against the coronavirus. And the animals, even the animals, they were returning to their natural habitats. We were seeing how dolphins were frolicking and swimming in the Venice canals. The air cleaner, the world greener. It felt like one of those blockbuster movies. I kept thinking of that movie, Independence Day. Planet Earth against invading aliens. The cheering and the effort of every country uniting to save our planet, like a giant worldwide arena, with all of us rooting for the same team made up of every race and religion and language and culture. I remember the very first sermon I gave from home, online, just like this, during the shutdown. I remember saying that one of the hardest parts of trauma is that secondary feeling of loneliness and isolation. It's not just what you've endured. It's afterwards that no one else can possibly understand what you've endured. And I remember saying that the trauma of this pandemic is a shared experience, and we can all endure it together, comfort each other, lift each other, and we will all remember it together as one, with a deep understanding of what you've been through and what I've been through. And I pray that this horrific pandemic, with all the suffering and fear and loss, would lead to a new time of understanding. I wanted to stay in my fantasy. It felt like a dream. What would it be like if the world came together? What we'd see, what we'd feel. You know what I'm talking about? Oh, Neshuva, I wanted that fantasy so much. Don't you? What if it was so? What would it be like to actually feel bonded to each other, to understand that what's good for you is what's good for me? A dream like that, you don't want to wake up from. what I didn't see coming, what most of us didn't see coming, was how this pandemic would create distances between us. Like so many of you, our son Adi flew home from New York during the height of the death toll there, and we wouldn't let him in our house. I was afraid to touch my own child. Who are you longing to touch right now? In all the ways we've been afraid to come near our elders for fear of infecting them, and our faces hidden behind masks that are blocking our smiles, and the 6 feet of distance from our friends, and the fear, and that longing for a simple embrace that we can't have. And Murray and Joan, a couple I've so admired and looked up to, who've been married for 58 years. They did everything together. They hardly spent a day apart, and suddenly the heartbreak. How do you say goodbye? How do you let go of your soulmate by cell phone? And Maya, a 13-year-old girl so wise beyond her years, who's been studying for months for her bat mitzvah, and all she wanted was for her grandparents to come and be there with her. It was their dream too, to be by her side, looking on proudly as she read from the Torah. And now all they could muster was a Zoom. And the ache so many of you are dealing with right now, like my dear friend Jake, who can't visit his ailing father in a nursing home, so they've taken to kissing the glass window between them. And still, we all found our ways to get by with virtual hugs and virtual meals, and all the ways we've made to bridge the distances. But then came a second wave, a more powerful wave of distance. The way this pandemic has been shining a light on the cracks in our fractured world, and I didn't see it coming. I was wrong. This coronavirus that has no consciousness does know the difference between us. And it does distinguish between the young and the old, between the healthy and the weak, between black and white, Latino and white, between rich and poor, between us sheltering at home and the homeless, between those who can work from home and those who have to risk their lives to go to work, between those of us with work and those who have no work, between those who wear masks and those who refuse to wear a mask. This pandemic is showing us cracks everywhere. It's teaching us how separated we've become. It's pointing to the walls we've built with our own hands. Instead of feeling the fantasy dream, we're seeing the shattering of that dream. We're not all the same. And this second wave of great distance is every bit as important as the dream of global unity, if not more so. Because it's showing us that we've been telling ourselves little white lies with our eyes closed. We've been smug in our safety. All is well. Our country is democratic and just. All police officers are here to help. Our healthcare system is the most advanced in the world. This pandemic is forcing us to ask, When are we going to open our eyes and see the world as it is? And how far we are from the world as it can be? And what role are you going to play? I think I need a tissue. I have one. 1 second, Nashu. I'm going to get a tissue. Oh, yeah. When we were in Japan visiting there 3 years ago, we stayed in a traditional hotel off the beaten path. We got to wear kimonos, and nobody in the hotel spoke English. So we began communicating through Google Translate. And the hotel manager presented a young man to us, and he typed into my iPhone pointing at this young guy who was bowing before us, and I read the translation and it said, "He's your responsibility." And I started laughing. We're on vacation. What are we supposed to do with him? Of course I understood what he meant to say. You are his responsibility, and he's here to get you anything you need. And of course I realized instantly, this soul bowing before me, he is my responsibility. We're either all responsible for each other, or we're not. And Rosh Hashanah is here today to shine a new light on us and our world. You know, when Joshua blew the shofar in Jericho, the walls came crumbling down. And the shofar's call this Rosh Hashanah is coming to wake us up and remind us that the walls we've built can come down, not magically, but with our hands and our hearts. Teshuvah is the power to lift the veil of distance and see what can be made whole. And Rosh Hashanah is shining a light not just on the cracks, it's shining a light on the miracles too. We read in the Torah today how Hagar and her son Ishmael are lost in the desert and they've run out of food and water, and she's sure they're gonna die. And she lays her son down because she can't bear to watch him die. And then the Torah says, and God opened her eyes, and she saw a well. And she ran and brought water for Ishmael and herself. God didn't put the well there. The miracle God performed was the eyes. That's all. God opened her eyes. Teshuvah, a well is here, waiting for us to drink from it. It's filled with grace and kindness and knowledge that we're all one family, and family takes care of their own. It's a well where doctors and nurses are now the ones cheering as they send their healthy patients home. Teshuvah, somewhere right now, the cure to this pandemic is here, waiting to be found. It's here already, and scientists will open their eyes and discover it soon, and we will all drink from that cure and be saved. And right now, this Rosh Hashanah, we are being given the power to glimpse the greater whole we can achieve together. Not the Hollywood version, the real deal. Healing, hope, a knowledge that every life is precious. And the selfishness of people partying with abandon and not seeing that they are spreading death will give way to a tender place where it's not either or, but what's best for you is what's best for me. And if this isn't the time for that dream, when will be the time? If people are struggling, we can't rest. We can't be okay if they're not okay. Our future, Our children's future depends on our ability to feel that your well-being is my prayer too on this holy day of awe. Wake us up, God, to this truth, to see what we share. Let us be reborn on a global level, not in the pandemic's light, but in your light, to see that me helping you is for my own sake. And God, where have you been? Where have you been when we've been praying and crying to you for help? Last night on Rosh Hashanah, I said we can hear on Rosh Hashanah, we can hear God calling out to each of us, where are you? And it's only natural this morning for me to turn that question around. God, where are you? Your world is burning. Are you asleep? There's a parable I want to share with you, Nashuva, right now, that can be read in two ways because it hinges on the translation of a single Hebrew word. The word is doleket. The question the parable comes to address is, in a time of rampant idolatry and fragmentation, what was it that led Abraham to leave the comfort of his home and to seek out the God of oneness and spread the message of love and responsibility, of fighting for the innocent and protecting the weak? What led him on his call? Here's the first version of the parable. Once Abraham was journeying, and he came upon a palace that was lit up with a brilliance and a radiance like nothing he had ever seen before in his life. And he thought to himself, whose palace is this? This place didn't just start shining so brightly like this all on its own. Just then, the owner peered out and said, it's mine. And all at once, Abraham understood that we're all living in God's brilliant world. And he set out to reveal the hand of the Creator in creation and to let all people see it. The alternate reading of this parable: once Abraham was journeying, and he came upon the most beautiful palace that was burning. And he said to himself, has this magnificent place been abandoned and left to burn to the ground? Doesn't it belong to anyone? And just then, the owner peered out from the burning palace and said, it's mine. And I can't put out the blaze alone. I need your help to put out the flames. And all at once, Abraham understood that our world is on fire, and God can't extinguish the flames alone. God's waiting for us to help. Let me ask you something, Nashuva. Which reading of the parable do you think is the correct one? The answer is yes. We're living in God's radiant, brilliant, shining world, and it's on fire, and God can't put out the flames alone. That means that prayer is that moment where our yearnings and God's yearnings meet, and everything is revealed as one. Nashuva, these days of awe are called et ratzon, the time when divine longing and human longing can be felt more acutely than any other time of the year. And that shofar beckoning us to break through the walls between you and me, between heaven and earth. It's beckoning us to break every wall, even between the living and the dead. The last time I saw my mom, I was standing over her, lying in her bed one last time. I knew she wasn't resting her eyes. Still, I wanted to say, Mom, open your eyes. Mom, don't leave me like this. But I knew she wasn't going to reply. A chasm had opened between us that felt bottomless. She felt so far away. I was on my own now. Or so I thought. Nashuva, is she near for me? Or is she far from me? The answer is, how do I know? Because she whispered this whole sermon to you today. Nashuva, it's been a year of catastrophic loss. How far away do you think those you've loved and lost are? And Nashuva, where's God? God, who is your shelter, is sheltering in place with you right now. God's in your bubble. And sometime over these 10 days of awe, I pray you will feel a poke saying, are you awake? It will be a poke from the soul of souls. And perhaps you can imagine that your talus is the place where you can be sheltered beneath God's wing. And I pray when you receive that poke that you won't tell a little white lie. I pray we will all open our eyes and see the work we've been called to do. And I pray we will open our eyes and see the well filled with sweet blessings, like sweet water that's here for us to drink from. Nashuva, I'm blessing you with a sweet year filled with health and healing and love and a cure and hugs and dreams and open eyes and a glimpse of the world as one. Amen. Shana Tova. With my love.